What we're going to talk about here is just concept development, right? So paperboard, corrugate, rigid board, everybody's a little bit different. If you're a packaging engineer, you may have a background in molded fibers. You know, looking at thermoform, you might be material agnostic. I tend to focus on folded paper, but that doesn't mean that I only design for folded paper, but that's where my first concepts begin. I only focus on the user experience. And what I'm going to show you, it's a little button. I just grabbed whatever was on my desk and it was easy to take a photo of. Right, so the first thing I do is when we're developing concepts is what is the product? What's the purpose, right? If it's a fragrance, then it's all about the primary packaging. It's all about the bottle, the shape. You know, is it the body? Is it the neck? Is it the lid? What is the main feature here that we're trying to focus on for fragrance? So you want to think about what's the first thing that that consumer engages with. With this particular product, it's a very basic product, right? It's like an easy button. You push it.
If you get the spec right, the rest follows.
And it gives you a spec right quote. It's a button.
I know how to press those buttons, buddy.
From a consumer side, like, yes, this can go into like a poly bag, a zippered bag. It ships, you know, you open it, you pull it out. But if we're trying to create an experience here, and that's the whole point with packaging, is how do you create an experience with a button? You know, the first things that I think about are like, I don't know, if you think of like those movies where there's like the button and, you know, you've got to lift that lid in order to push the button down. That's one interaction that people can relate to with a button. The other thing is like pull a switch and then this button comes out from the desktop and then you push the button. Like all these different features can increase the unboxing experience of the product. Again, it has to make sense for the product, or, you know, you can just put this in a regular tuck box, you open it up, you slide it out and you take it out and that's it. End of story. The focus then is on the product, not the experience. There's no reason to talk about it. There's nothing that's memorable, but sometimes that's fine, right? But in this class, we're going to talk about how to get from this into something great. I'm not going to prototype anything. In this one, we've done a different class for prototyping. You can check it out on the channel, but with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So what I'm using is Procreate. Procreate on an iPad is super easy, super simple. For me, I love it because it's easier than paper. I can take photos, I can bring in photos of product, I can sketch around them, I can make boxes, I can do whatever it is that I need to do. And then if I need to, I can double tap with my fingers and undo. Getting started, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new layer. I personally prefer this Studio Pen. There's a bunch of different pens that happen here. In Procreate, Studio Pen is what I feel is the closest to a real pen. I'm adjusting the thickness here. That's a little bit too thick. So let's talk about that unboxing experience of like one of those launch code boxes, right? So it would kind of look like, you know, you'd have, you know, and these are like just super rough sketches. And this is the way that I typically work, is I keep everything super rough. I don't refine anything just because I want to make sure that the idea is even realistic, right? So if I'm going to have this swing open backwards, this area here needs to be a hinge. That's great. We've all seen boxes that kind of open in that fashion where you've got a base and you've got a lid, and then that lid just swings back. My dog has seen this. You can hear her agreeing in the background. And this is pretty basic, right? This is nothing special. And if we've got the button in here, well, what if I want to make this a little bit more interesting and I want this button to actually come up and rise as you open the box? So now it gets into something that's a little bit more complicated. There's a little bit more engineering that has to happen here in order for that to work. So what I do is I'll just create a new layer. So what I want to do is, and I'm actually going to hide these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and create like this base, right? And I'm going to lay out what this base looks like. I usually do a 3-point perspective to get this box to really stand out. And 3-point perspective means that these lines are going to a vanishing point somewhere over here. These lines are going to a vanishing point over here. And then all of these lines are going down here. All right, so this kind of tapers and that tapers. It's the way that I learned how to sketch. It's the way that I prefer to sketch. You can just do a flat, no perspective concept and that works just as well. So we've got a base. Now we need the functionality of something that moves. And having that product, we need a platform, right? So you've got your button and you've got your box. So we need something that's going to rise this up. And again, this is like super fast. I haven't thought about this through, actually before this class, I was having breakfast. So I want to, I had zero idea about this. So this is like real-time concept development. If I need that to rise up, then, I need something that's going to bring this product up. And this is all pre-prototype. This can be paper, it can be molded fiber, it can be thermoform, it can be anything. But right now it's just about the idea. So if I need a platform that's going to rise up, I need to figure out how this is going to happen. The other thing too is if I've got this button, I can't just have it sitting on a platform because then it's going to shift all over the place. So I need something that's going to capture the shape of this product, right? And that can be molded fiber. It can be like a cool little pedestal that it sits in, that then sits on top of a tray, and then it can rise up. So how does it rise up? Okay, so now we're going to change colors just so you can kind of see the variation of what's happening here. So I need something that's going to go in here, that's going to rise up. There's a few ways that I can do that. One is levers and pulleys. So if we've got a box base and we've got a tray here, we can do a ribbon that goes all the way underneath and then attaches here. And there's a company out there, it's called BurgoPack. I think somebody from BurgoPack might be actually joining us here. And they do these gift card carriers. There's inspiration everywhere. And like their gift card carrier, if you pull the card out this way, there's another panel that slides out this way. And it's a patented process, so I'm not telling you to go out and copy it. But if you were to look at the profile of it, there's a divider in the middle. There's a card down here and a card up here. And then there's a piece of plastic that kind of threads its way through. And as you pull this comes out. So it's the same concept. It's something that works really easy and it's easy to produce. So like this is one option of how to do it, right? As you lift the lid, it pulls this ribbon, it raises this platform. So it's something that's completely possible. What's up, Brian? How's it going? I see Brian here coming in from Philadelphia. You guys can also check out, I talked to Kurt and Kurt's on their podcast about concept development and my sketching process and kind of how I think through things. They did it was a good time. So you can definitely check that out. But like this is really like the whole process. So like we have here, like this is something that I would share with a client, not at this rough of a stage, but I would show them. So like here's what I would show them. I'm gonna go ahead and hide this. All right, so I'm tapering that down. We're going to black. All right, so this is what I would show the customer. Right, and typically when I'm sketching, I'll do these outer edge lines thicker. What's cool about Procreate is you can draw, a wonky line, and then if you hold the pen down long enough, it straightens it out. Right, so any of these lines that are individual lines where you can slip something behind it, for example, like in this box, like these lines are something that you can put a paper behind, back here and back here. This line you can't because it's a fold, so that line stays thinner. But the idea here then becomes that button, right? So like here we're showing, I'm just doing a rough layout of this button because we're not going to spend time on that. All right, so we kind of show this to the client as like, this is the overall idea. All right, we show this platform that's raised over here and, probably has some kind of feature there. We're going to show this, and then we're going to show like this view. All right, and you can go in and kind of like fine tune some of this stuff, like hide. I don't know, it's too fat of an eraser. All right, so like this is something that I would show the client. This is an open view. And then I would show them a closed view. And the way that I do my closed view is I'll create a new layer and then I'll just trace. As a kid, you're kind of taught that tracing is cheating. I don't buy that. It's just fast. All right, so I can bring this up. And if you guys have any questions on anything that I'm working on here, definitely drop it in the comments. If you've got any questions on anything related to packaging and you want it answered in one of these classes, I'm happy to do that. I would love to do that. So definitely drop something in there. I know I had a question on how to create repeat patterns for tissue. So we'll look at that in a future class. I've seen some questions on materials, how to select materials. I just ordered some materials from the team at Mohawk. They sent some stuff over, which is great. I've got some materials from French Paper that they sent over, which is awesome. And it's like all these materials that come in all serve a purpose. It's like it all tells a story, right? So the overall idea here is like, this is what I would share with the client. This rough, I would probably throw in some action lines to show them like what happens. You know, this raises. There's probably going to have to be some kind of a cuff in here in order for the ribbon pull structure to work and to keep the box closed. But this is 5 minutes worth of sketches that I would show them and say, hey, this is kind of the idea is this is going to open, and I'm still inside the iPad here, but who cares? And it's going to open like this, and the product's going to raise up, and you're going to be presented with, you know, it's going to go like this, and the product's going to go like that. And then you can like slam the button down. It entices you to do that. You know, that's one feature that we can do. We can use a variety of different materials, and you kind of walk them through the overall concept. The concept is presenting that button. All right, so the idea here is like you open this raises, and you're presented with this button. I don't have to figure out all of the engineering, right? And this is one thing that I talk to a lot of designers about and a lot of engineers, specifically engineers, is you don't have to solve the entire design process, the entire engineering process at this stage, because I can show you a box that does this in 5 minutes, and you can say, yeah, I hate it. I don't ever want to have my product in a box like that, right? Whatever it is that they say, they might completely hate it and not want to move forward. And there's no reason for you to have spent more than 5 minutes presenting that idea to them. If you go back, and I've seen this a lot, is you'll have an engineering team that will like literally engineer every functionality of that box. The outer board is going to be 2.5 millimeters thick. The ribbon that's going to do the pulling is going to be, you know, a poly grow grain, you know, and spec everything out. Like it's going to, you know, we're going to do a PVC tape, and it's going to use this type of adhesive, and it's going to have this type of molded piece. And you spent all these hours and brain power on something that ultimately is going to get tossed. But yeah, it's going to get tossed. So the idea is like present more concepts. So that was one idea. You know, Andrew, you do have a great point. You have to have an idea of how to make it, but the idea here is like showing the concept. They may not like the idea of this piece raising up. And if you're in a meeting with a client, it's okay to go, you know, be sitting across from them and showing them like, do you want something that does this? Do you want something that has this footprint? You know, and of course you can go back to, you can go back to your team and then like, all right, let's figure out how to get there. And, you know, having been in production for a while, it's definitely something that, you know, I know that we can produce. But if you're a younger designer, you might not have experience in manufacturing, then it's like, it would be, let me show you some things. I've got to go back to production and find out if, you know, how realistic this is going to be, but we can get, at least we know the direction that you want to go in. The goal of this is to move fast up front, and you're moving fast towards a goal. And the goal is to narrow down the vision of that client. Because a lot of times clients, they don't know what they want, and they don't know where to go. And the one thing that I hear a tremendous amount that drives me nuts is, I don't know what I want, but I'll know when I see it. Right. And if you've ever heard that, you know, let me know in the comments, but it's like the worst thing ever. They're like, yeah, I don't know. I know I don't want that, but I don't know exactly what I want, but I'll know when I see it, which means show me as much as you possibly can, and then I'll decide, which isn't the way that you want to design things. You want to show concepts, narrow it down. There's a whole strategy that goes in place before this. You know, you're talking to the client, you're asking like their goals, you're asking like, you're looking at competitors. There's all of that work. But again, you want to show them something that's going to make it a little bit easier for them to say yes or no. That is the worst phrase. Like literally, I don't know what I want, but I'll know when I see it. And as soon as you hear that, your heart just kind of melts and you die a little bit inside each time. But I do want to show you like another option here. So again, this was like 5 minutes worth of concepting and a whole lot of talking. Right, we still have the same product. You can see in here, I've kept all my sketches, all my layers, which is why I really like Procreate, because I can go back and look at old ideas, and I can look at ideas that were rejected by one client and they may apply to another client. So in this case, we're going to do something that's going to be a little simpler. Maybe it's like a drawer box or something. We're going to just throw in these lines again. I've made this box shape so many times I can do that. I can literally do this in my sleep. And that's kind of where I guess where you want to get is just the repetition to be able to knock this thing out quickly, this general shape. It's a button, so maybe I want, I can do like a ribbon pull on this to draw this thing out. You can do a hole. I just had Black Ink projects on my podcast this past week. They did all the packaging for Human Race, which is Pharrell's brand. And for his shoes, they created this little hole in the shape of the moon. That was whatever the shape of the moon was on the day that he was born. That's the shape of the moon that they have on the hole. Nobody knows about it, except now that's on the podcast, people will know about it, but I think it's just kind of cool. All these little pieces that kind of tell a story. Again, you kind of just share this concept. All right, well, it's going to be a drawer. It's going to have a hole. It's going to pull. You're going to pull forward. You probably don't want to see the product in there, so we're going to need some kind of an insert in there. And just draw this thing down. And again, I haven't thought about what this packaging is going to look like, but again, this is as quick as it kind of goes through. You can create an insert. And if you have any questions, either on my process or on anything packaging related, just throw it in the comments. Like I said, we can make a whole class around it. Or I'm happy to answer this now. Again, we can create an insert here that is going to go around the product. And again, I'm not worried about how to assemble this thing. There's a million ways to assemble this shape, but this piece here is essentially going to block the visual of the product. In order to make this functional, you're probably going to want to have a hole here too. So that gives you an opportunity to slide this thing out, pull this product up. So like the immediate thing that makes me think of is I'm going to have a hole like this in the front of that box. And then I'm also going to have this hole here. So I can either play it safe and make the hole inside a little bit larger so that you can never see any edges, or I can make the hole a little bit smaller. And then I see all of this green around this, right? Because I'll see it through here. That can be kind of cool. I can change that shape and go like this so that all of this is green, right? And these are areas where you can create these little moments that consumers experience. They might see it, this might be a black box and then you've got this green area here. That could be kind of cool. We've got this cloud shape that's happening there. Can we incorporate that into this design? Of course we can. If it doesn't make sense, it may or may not. You can do, kind of like this kind of shape, and then all of a sudden you have that. It might look like teeth marks or like a bite mark.
You want to see the bite marks?
But no ideas are bad ideas. You have to kind of throw them out and put them in here. And what's great about this is like this, again, took a couple of minutes to do. The whole point of concept development, as we're kind of wrapping up here, is throw out all the ideas that you possibly can. And you don't have to show your customer, your client, all of the ideas, but you can narrow them down yourself. In these 30 minutes, I talked a whole bunch. I concepted out a few, 2 different ideas, showed you how to do it. I think in folded material and paperboard, rigid board, as you can see, the idea here is like the shape, the experience. And then you can go back and say, okay, well, this can either be folded, we can fold the paper in this direction, or we can mold a piece, we can die cut a piece. There's so many different things that you can do. And you can then throw that in there. Then you can refine your sketches. All right, if this is gonna be molded, then we're gonna have like these little draft angles, and you don't have to get into specifics, but you just have to show the general idea. Again, this is something that I'll do sitting across from a client. And if you're a designer, you're a salesman, this will sell the packaging. You're sitting across from the buyer, who typically doesn't get brought into the conversation for packaging design. Typically it's a creative team at a brand and then a buyer, and the creative team says, here, this is what I want, go buy it. But if you engage that buyer and you're like, all right, well, this is kind of what I'm thinking. What do you think? What should we show creative? They're now pulled into the conversation. They're going to give you their feedback. And you know what? They've got great ideas because they've seen packaging for so long, and they know what things cost. And they go, hey, will that cost more than this? You can start narrowing things down before you share it with the creative team. And it seems counterintuitive to go to buyer versus creative team, but at least now you're coming to the creative team with something that's a little bit more feasible from a budget standpoint. And you've kind of narrowed things down as well. So instead of showing creative 10 ideas, you're now showing them 3 ideas that you've kind of walked through with the buyers on finance and accounting, and getting a good sense of like what they're really capable of affording, because they're the ones that are going to sign the check. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. If you have any questions, again, we just kind of did this thing, spec right.
Make amazing things.
They make amazing things. How do you package up a button? How do you package up a fragrance? Like, doesn't matter what it is, focus on what that experience needs to be. This is a button, so we want something that's going to entice you to push it. If it's fragrance, do you want them to grab it by the neck, by the lid, by the bottle? What is the thing that you really want to stand out? Do you want that fragrance to stand up? Definitely make sure that you're kind of thinking through what that experience is that you're trying to create. Johnny, co-creation with customer helps build, it does. It helps build ownership in the brand, and it'll definitely help that project move forward. It's super important to do that. Somebody's asking, what point do you get the manufacturer involved? After this concept development, now you can go back with just as rough of concepts as you shared with a client, and you can now talk to manufacturing and say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. I'm really looking to get into a molded fiber tray that does this and this. They're going to ask you about quantities, timelines, what kind of material you're looking for molded fiber. You're looking for a smooth finish, like a hot press, or you're looking for something that's a little bit rougher. At that point, they'll be able to come back and say, yeah, this is not possible because of your quantities, or this is possible with these caveats. That's where you really want to get the manufacturer started, to have that dialogue. Concept to the client, narrow down before you get any further in sketches. Share this with your manufacturing partner, with your production team. Say, this is where I want to go. What are the problems I'm going to run into? What do I need to think about? What kind of hinges do I need to look at? Then they'll give you that feedback. You can incorporate that now into your concepting, or you can share this rough concept with your design team if you're not going to be the one designing it, and say, this is where we want to go. These are the issues that you're going to run into. So I want you to design around that. Gets you to the finish line so much faster. Try to concept some things out in your next sales call, in your next client meeting. Just get these ideas out quickly, and you're going to see how much faster you're going to get to the end. And I just had Michael Fisher from Rotten, he's launching a new gummy candy. And he's like, I just wanted to launch this product. I didn't know how long packaging was going to take. If you're working with a startup, they never know how long packaging is going to take. Usually it takes just as long to develop the packaging as it did to develop their product. So the faster you can get there, the better you're going to be. Again, if you have any questions that you want to see on future classes, let me know.